Warning, listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
And welcome back to another episode of Influencers Radio. You know, we hear the term serial entrepreneur a lot, but I think today we have someone that is that definition fits perfectly. Not over-exaggerated. If anything, it's probably understated, because today we have a serial entrepreneur who has founded, scaled, or sold over a dozen different businesses, ranging from consumer products to industrial machine manufacturing companies, with adjusted sales ranging from $3 million to $337 million. He's also the co-founder and or principal of 4 current Inc. magazine's fastest growing companies, 2 e-commerce, 2 software as a service companies. And besides currently growing 2 of those companies, which are digitalmarketer.com and nativecommerce.com. We'll talk about that. He's actively advises over 100 other companies on digitally centric customer acquisition, activation, referral, retention, and revenue strategies and plan implementation. If I had to describe this guy, it would be he is an influencer of influencers. So please welcome to the show, Mr. Roland Frasier. Welcome to Influencers Radio, Roland.
No, thanks, Jack. I appreciate you having me.
You know, when your name comes up, people that are serious into digital marketing, what's the old E.F. Hutton, you know, when Roland Frasier talks, people listen, because you have been behind some of the incredible successes in digital marketing, not just for your own companies, but for a lot of other businesses. So you've been in the marketing game long before there was even a thought of it being digital, right?
Yeah, long before the internet, unfortunately.
A lot of people think that there's a lot of things that have to be done new ways, or they try to reinvent the wheel. But I've always seen that the principles of marketing are pretty solid, kind of universal truths. And anybody that's a fan of marketing that gets, geeks out over stuff like this when they watch old infomercials, they know what the name Gunthy Rinker is. They know K-Tel Direct. When I saw that you were involved in that, that's all I thought. The old record ads. K-Tel, I think they were the originals of hyping up records and special deals if you act now.
They were indeed.
Take us back to there. How did you get involved with marketing at that scale prior to the internet?
Well, I started out selling real estate. I had my license to sell real estate when I was 18, and then gradually at 19 got insurance license and 20 securities, and was doing syndications and things like that. But so I was always interested in marketing, or indirectly, like I didn't really think of it as marketing. And when I started practicing law, I really was attracted to and attracting entrepreneurs. So it was really fun to me to see all the different ways that people made money. It was like somebody would come in and they were doing $5 million a year selling organic horse biscuits, and, just all these bizarre, strange ways that people could make money. And having those entrepreneurs was really, really fun. And the thing that I enjoyed the most about practicing law wasn't really practicing law. It was marketing and selling legal services. And so as I was getting involved with that more and meeting more and more entrepreneurs that were doing marketing, I had the good fortune to represent several entrepreneurs that were in the marketing space, or in the in different channels of distribution. And so that got me connected with Tony Robbins and Dennis Waitley and Ken Blanchard and all of these people that were doing different things. And the first folks that came to us in the infomercial space were actually the people that were doing Flowbee. If you remember that vacuum cleaner that cuts your hair.
I had a different word for it. It was an FB, because I think that's what you said when you looked in the mirror afterwards.
Those folks were clients of firm, and I got to really get to see kind of how that stuff worked, and that got me interested in the channels of distribution. So I guess that's it. Is like going back to what you said before. Is there are certain things that everybody thinks everything is new, but it really isn't. What works in terms of marketing principles, if you study Robert Collier and David Ogilvy and Claude Hopkins and all those guys, that stuff all is absolutely still working 100%. The only thing that's changing is that there are new channels of distribution and then new tactics and strategies related to exploiting those channels. And so in practicing law, and meeting all these different people, representing Tony Robbins and these other marketers, and getting to know the Guthrie-Rinker Corporation and the folks at KTEL, that in doing the deals for my clients that were working with those different channels, that really got me super excited about participating as a principal, not just as an advisor. And so when the opportunities arose, I was able to cut deals with different companies like that to do stuff. And that's really what I would say got me into marketing a lot. And probably the first digital marketing thing I did was with CompuServe, if you remember CompuServe.
I do. Way
back in the day. And then America Online. So those were kind of my first two forays into that digital world. And I had deals with CompuServe. I remember when they all came out to our law office and sat down, and we put the deal together to do a beauty channel, and had deals with a really famous makeup guy and a really famous hair guy, and so on and so forth. And so we did that. And then America Online was more of a channel around personal development. So that just kind of cemented me. I was like, I'm watching that stuff grow, and I see the opportunity. And to me, momentum and trends are a really big thing to focus on if you want to have success. Ride a wave that's already started, but that hasn't already crested. And so I got basically just kind of inserted myself as much as I could with those people, figured out how to add value, and then started doing deals.
I guess you got into marketing first, but before actual products, because to me, I see people that there's true marketers that's what they focus on is marketing, and they're purist when it comes to that. And then there are other people who I kind of classify as product creators that were forced to get into marketing if they wanted to sell their stuff, right?
Sure.
And I'm sure you've helped people like that. I know you're part of the War Room Mastermind. And would you say that there's a lot of people that come in there that fit that category, that they're product creators that were kind of forced to get into marketing so they can sell their stuff, versus true marketing purists? And what do you see the advantages or disadvantages of each of those?
It's a really good question. I think that it's a mix. I would say that it's probably 40-60, 40% product people and 60% marketing people that are in there. You aren't generally attracted to being a member of that War Room Mastermind unless you are very passionate about marketing. So what we don't get is we don't get product people who just aren't interested in marketing, who are hired out kind of people. So the people that we get are definitely advanced, intermediate to very advanced marketers. And the advantages and disadvantages, I think, are it's really just skill set. Ideally, you have some sprinkling of product talent as well as marketing talent, I think. But you could easily be product agnostic, meaning give me a product and I'll market it. But so advantages to me of being a product person are that really the best products, the ones that go viral, the ones that have demand, that have word of mouth carrying them, that marketing is more amplification of the desire to own the product instead of creating the desire, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that is really important, that the product itself is on market, on message to the market, on demand with the market. So that product market fit, they call that, right? That's really critical. So a product person who is simply trying to build the better mousetrap that's just saying, gosh, this would be cool, and does that in a void, in a vacuum, and then hopes that the market will like that product without a lot of tweaking. Those don't seem to succeed very often. What the best product people and the best marketing people do is they go through that cycle of, here's the first version of the product. Now let's go out and test it and see what the market tells us about that. Then let's make adjustments based on that feedback, and then roll it out again. And you kind of do this product market test cycle that helps you get to the point where it really actually does satisfy a need. Because I always heard when I was growing up, right, it was find a need and fill it, find a need and fill it. And I was like, great, how the hell do I don't even know how to do that, right? It's like that for me, I was just too stupid to know how to do that. But what I can do is, and I think anybody can, is I can take a product that either you can come in anywhere in that cycle. I guess that's what I'm saying. Is so if you're a product person, then fine. You've got your product, but make your product evolve through multiple iterations of putting it out in the market, testing it, improving it, getting feedback, and you may end up with a completely different kind of product, right? You may start like Post-it notes did, trying to make the strongest adhesive that's ever existed, and end up with something that really won't stick to anything but for a little bit, and then turns out that everybody wants that. So, don't be discouraged that your product might evolve into something that you didn't think it ultimately was going to be. Be open to that. Don't get married to the first iteration of your product. So if you're a product person, then that's cool. You're starting with the product, and then you're taking marketing feedback. If you're a marketing person, then you need the product, obviously, to market, but you've got the skills that are ultimately required to make a successful product. So you can find a product person, but you will need that person, and or you can buy or license the product, and then you run it through that iterative process to come up with product market fit with something that you can then, take out and launch.
I guess the way I see it is that a lot of product people try to go out and convince the market that they want what they created. And
Yep.
and the marketer goes out and tries to convince the market that they have what they want.
Yeah, and ideally, neither of those things happens, right? Because both of those things fail to do the ultimate thing, which is what you shouldn't be educating someone that they need your product, and you shouldn't be convincing someone that they need to buy your product. You should simply be providing the opportunity through exposure to the product to access something that they already believe they need and are already and don't need to be convinced that they want to buy. Now, there are huge, obviously, exceptions to that. We didn't know that we needed an iPhone. We didn't know that we needed a tablet computer, but Jobs did a good job of saying, well, actually, a lot of people are really super frustrated communicating in text via T9, if you remember ever trying to do T9 text communications, and, on a non-smartphone. And so let's create a UI, let's create a user interface and a user experience that is significantly better. Now, when he did that, people were like, oh my God, this is so much better than this stuff that we had before. So they needed to be aware, right? So what he really had to do was just make people aware. And the same thing with the iPod. They were walking around with, 400 cassettes trying to listen to a Walkman. And he's like, you got 1,000 songs in your pocket. And the same thing with the tablet, as far as not having to lug around a laptop. So I think as I'm talking, I'm wondering if that's actually an exception or it is kind of in harmony with what we're talking about, because it's still looking at the market and seeing that the market really should have this thing. Now, they might not realize yet that that's an option. So I think what Jobs did was he was amazing at saying, hey, you actually are going to want the heck out of this because it solves a lot of problems that you have learned to live with. And it definitely is reinventing that experience to make it better. And so what he really did then was was he made them aware that good enough wasn't good enough, and that better did exist, and then he simply amplified that. And I think that's what we want to do. I don't think we want to say, hey, you need to have this device that allows you to communicate via audio with someone else in some other location. That just has to kind of be obvious from the product itself. Oh my gosh, I can now talk to somebody in Sweden from the United States, or in Japan from South Africa. That's really what you want. You don't want to have to. And I found that over and over. You and I were, I think, long ago involved in local marketing spaces, and it was really hard to go out to businesses and to educate a business that they needed to do local marketing. They needed to get their name, address, and phone number information online. They needed to be present so that their business was available to people who were searching for them locally. And it was just a really hard offer because you had to educate them about so many things. So you could have a killer product there as a product person and not have any demand, even though there should be. And the should be is because you had to spend all your time educating them one at a time in this horribly tedious process that they should have this. And even as a marketer, you could market the heck out of that and get the word out to everybody, but because it wasn't something that was kind of self-evident that they needed or that they would want or that would benefit them, you really, again, had to go through the educational process. So you kind of lost as marketer and you lost as product person. You really want to get to the place before you're trying to market at scale where it's just showing them that this is available and they say, wow, I want 1,000 songs in my pocket, or whatever thing it is that you're trying to sell. Does that make sense? What do you think about that?
You brought up a great point there, and I think Steve Jobs did kind of turn the traditional thought, on its head, and really took a contrarian, a method or strategy to marketing. And, as you talk about that with Steve Jobs, I was thinking what he did with the iPhone. What's the old saying that necessity is the mother of invention, right? And that's right. Where I guess most people that in traditional marketing think about that, go find a need and fill it. But Jobs took it, almost turned that saying around to invention is now the mother of necessity, it seems, because if
right, exactly.
Nobody needed an iPhone until he put it in front of them. And now
that's what you keep hearing with him. You didn't know you needed it until he created it, right? And that's beautiful.
And that's what I wanted to transition into, because that really does seem to be your sweet spot in the fact that that you can recognize, something that's obviously has potential or has proven track record and maybe a microcosm, and be able to introduce that to the world. I think about you and I think about the movie The Founder, right? Mm-hmm. In which Kroc didn't make hamburgers, wasn't food, but he recognized a success on a very tight basis and said, this has a lot of potential that they're completely neglecting, ignoring, don't recognize.
Right.
And that seems to be your magic, your specialty, is to recognize when that is. And you've been involved with products that are all over the board, and to you, it's not necessarily what the product does or what it looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like. It's how well is it sold on the level that it's at, and then you say, okay, we can take this bigger.
Exactly.
How do you prepare yourself to look at something like that and be able to determine that when you have no real connection, perhaps, with the product?
Yeah, the like from a process standpoint, I've over the years I've developed several tools that I use. I've got I have a trend mapping canvas and a leverage mapping canvas and a traffic grid, a channel grid. These are a product extension and a lot of other tools like that I use. And then I use tools that were created by other people as well, the Blue Ocean Strategy tools and the Lean canvas. Those are all things that I use to analyze a deal, and I say, okay, I just basically fill in the the things that I use, these tools that I use with what already exists, what markets and channels the thing is already in. And then I start looking at where are the opportunities. And if it's an opportunity that I can directly affect, or if it's an opportunity that I can connect with, then it makes sense for me to get involved. If it's not, then I'll try to refer the folks that I'm talking to out to other people that might be able to help them. And I don't ever charge or anything for that. I'm just trying to, to add value, because that always seems to come back, 100-fold. So to be specific, I'll look at, let's just say channels, right? So, okay, what markets are you in currently? We're in the United States. Okay, great. Well, then if you're in the let's actually be more specific. We're selling this product right now in Laguna Beach, California. Great. Okay, so can we expand that to the rest of Southern California, so geographic expansion? Can we go to all of California? Can we go to the rest of the United States? Then can we go into international markets? Do we do that in different languages? Do we have any strategic partners that we can associate with that? What are the different methods or models that we might employ to balance the growth and scale needs with funding and resources? So maybe we'll look at a model where we'll take whatever this thing is and we'll keep the rights in the place that it is, kind of like Kroc did, sort of, right? And in the Founder movie, or in Ray Kroc's real life, and say, okay, these guys have a great system for making hamburgers, so we can just open a bunch of stores ourselves, but that's going to take a whole lot of money. So now we're looking at the funding needs for scale, because growth is probably easy because there's lots of demand, but scale, getting their actual units out there into more places and into the hands of more customers, that's going to cost money, require people and systems. So what can we do to do that? Well, we might be able to license it to other people. We might find some other chain that already exists that's maybe a drive-in, since fast food hadn't been invented at the time, and we'll expand by licensing these systems to those existing people. That gets us scale and funding and eliminates the need for a lot of resources that we'd have to have if we did it ourselves. Alternatively, maybe we franchise, where like Kroc did, and we go out and we get investors who are, in his case, owner-operators, to put up the money to then use our brand, expand our brand, and take our systems and get more customers. Or maybe we say, we can do that ourselves here in the United States, but there's a lot of opportunity to sell off territories. When I was doing movies, we would go and we would sell off the international rights to different territories internationally before we would make the movie, because that would then give us the funding to actually make the movie. We'd have to make a trailer, and then we'd go and sell the trailer to the foreign, like to Germany and other places. And then that money would be used to help us produce the movie here. And then we'd keep the domestic rake. So it's just looking at all of there's 32 different channels on my channel grid that I'm going to go through first to say, which of these things are the low-hanging fruit that we can use to get both growth and scale the fastest.
And I want to make something crystal clear that this isn't what you're talking about when you do these. You're far from a venture capitalist, because what you haven't come out and just said bluntly is you're not putting your money into these business saying, hey, this is a good idea, let me put my money into this.
I do that. I don't do it at the startup phase, but if I see that there's a big opportunity, I will put capital in. I sometimes do and sometimes don't. It depends on the deal.
You've cut a lot of deals where you didn't necessarily put money into, but you through the creativity,
definitely,
you build it, just like Kroc. It's because I think any entrepreneur or anybody that knows an entrepreneur knows one of the most dangerous things that an entrepreneur starting out can have is money.
Yes. I agree.
They're tempted to spend it.
Yeah, it's almost without fail that I have watched that happen just time after time. A good buddy of mine runs a venture fund, and he's a guy that invests in, Twitter and things like that before they're famous. And one of the things that he said, because he's a Valley guy, right? So he said, one of the things that I look at before I decide to fund a company is I'll go into the offices, and if I see all new Macs on all new desks with this super cool, hip environment, then I'm out, because that's somebody that's going to spend all my money making something look cool and buying all the new equipment and everything, instead of investing that money in media and product iteration, which are the places that they should really be spending. So it's definitely something that I've seen, and my own personal experience is every time I venture away from that let's keep it really, really lean and focused on things, and money comes in, even recently we had one of the companies that I'm involved in, we did a round, and we had a couple $1 million come in, and it just went poof, just so fast that the people that were the management kind of didn't pay attention, and before they knew it, they had spent it, and they had expenses that didn't make any sense, and we had to come in and basically do a turnaround on a company that should have been far, far ahead of where it was.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that is contrary to what people think, because when you've seen that, you realize that one of the easiest things to do when a problem arises is write a check, and it's rarely the right thing to do.
Right.
When that happens, to find a solution to that. And I think that's also one of the things that you've done is, even though you're able to write a check, you say, well, no, there's another way around this. And, I've been around you in a lot of different situations at events, and I've seen behind the curtains when other people are running around with their hair on fire because they think things aren't going right. And you always have. And I think I should coin this, the Roland Frasier grin. Regardless of what's going on around you, you have that Roland Frasier grin and the ability to see a solution. And even though it's not the optimal solution, it gets past whatever obstacles may arise. Yep. And I think when you go into a company and see that, no, there's potential, we don't need to necessarily spend cash, just like you talked about the founder going out and getting other people to buy rights into this. But you've actually taken ownership into companies by doing that without putting in your cash, and instead of saying, here's what I'm going to pay you, rather, here's what you're going to pay me.
Yeah, way more often than not, that is what I do. So I'll come in, and I know the value that I can bring, and that the teams that I have access and the resources I have access to can bring. And I don't usually have to ask. It's usually people coming to me and saying, will you please take an interest in this company? Because I know that if you do, it's going to grow. And, I don't always have success, but I have way, way, way more successes than I have non-successes. So that obviously helps. But I think the things that I bring, I think money is a commodity that's out there that's readily available. So when you get to the point where you need money to accomplish a specific thing, another company that we did a round in last year, again, of a couple $1 million, we needed money specifically to buy inventory to expand. Now that makes sense, but I didn't want to put my money into it because I like other people's money. So I went out and I raised a couple $1 million for this company, and it was exclusively to be invested in inventory, which allows the company to grow. That makes a whole lot more sense, right? So I have access to all the different resources, one of which is capital. And so most people that I do business with say, hey, I know if you get involved, whatever we need, we're gonna make happen. So let's look at that. And frequently, capital is the easiest thing to get, because if you have something that's already successful, all you have to do is find the leverage. And I guess that's what I really think I'm best at, is finding the leverage in the business that's going to allow it to get to the next level or two up. And that you don't need money for most often, right?
Oh, yeah. And I think that's, again, where it becomes dangerous in having money, because you somehow tend to neglect or ignore the opportunities to leverage.
Exactly.
When you have the money to do that. One of the things that you've done, essentially, obviously with the respect that you've gained and even reverence, I would say, in the marketing world, you have the luxury, I guess a lot of people would say, of having some really smart and successful people around you. And and not just with leveraging money or leveraging businesses, you've been very good at leveraging other people, and that's not to say taking advantage of other people or taking them for granted, but being able to leverage them. And I think that's part of kind of what the War Room Mastermind that you have, because you have people in that war room. I don't know where you could go when you're in a room with people that are, people that are $10 million media buyers, infomercial producers, tech millionaires, TV celebrities, 7 and 8 figure Amazon retailers all together in the same room. You don't get that stumbling into the local Denny's, right?
You don't, unless maybe if you're in the Valley. No, you really don't. And that's been, you're absolutely right. To me, like you mentioned earlier at these events, we do huge events, and my partners and I are not stressed out. We just really have to show up and give great content and network, because we have an incredibly powerful team that handles all our events. That's, we built our own events team, and we have in Deanna Rogers, who I believe and Marissa and Carrie and Carol and all the other people, Matt, that are involved in that. Those guys handle all of that stuff, so we don't have to. We get to do our highest and best skills, and it's the same thing with the War Room. Is in having all the people that you talked about. Like we have Kevin Harrington is a member, and Joe Polish is a member, and we have these very connected, very powerful people. So if you want to do, let's say that you want to expand into television, you don't have to go in there and fumble around on your own. Our last meeting, we had a $50 million a year QVC seller in there talking about this is how we do it. We had Dean Graciosi come in and chat. And this is a small group of people, right? We're 100 people is where we cap it out. Dean's had 3 multi-million bestsellers, sold over $1.5 billion in products on TV, and then Kevin Harrington, who invented the infomercial. So those are the people that you're hanging out with. So if you talk about leverage, having access to those people, that's what makes all of us able to succeed. And I'm not just trying to say this about the war. I'm saying whenever you're going to do something, you go and find the best people and you connect with them as best you can to do the thing that you want to do. So for me, one of the secret of being able to do that is that Ryan Dice and Perry Belcher and I built this War Room thing to actually have a value that we can give to these people by connecting them, and also to have a resource for ourselves selfishly that we can go to and say, hey, we're looking at doing this thing. You're selling this much on Amazon every month. Can you help us with that? And everybody's helping everybody. That's kind of the secret, right? Is you don't have to be good really at anything except assembling resources to be amazing at everything, right?
Yeah, and I think sometimes when people haven't been involved in a mastermind, because a lot of marketers tend to almost evolve into mushrooms after a while, it's just some of the most remarkable moments that occur, and $1 million moments, $1 billion moments. Yep. I think you even talked about the what ifs. What if Jobs never met Wozniak, or Ben never met Jerry, or Kroc never met the McDonald's brothers, and all that happens in a moment. And it seems like a lot of life's big shifts can be traced back to a moment. You've had to have seen a lot of those moments occur.
I have, and what's really cool, Jack, is that you can stack the deck in your favor of creating those moments by like some of those are just fortuitous coincidences, right? So the order for, I think it was 6 of these blender things that the McDonald's brothers placed with Kroc caused Kroc to say, wait a minute, nobody's ordering that many. I should go out and see what's up with that, right? It was fortunate that he was curious enough and present enough mentally to say, I should probably go drive across country and check this out. if instead of having to wait for those things to occur, you stack the deck a little bit by surrounding yourself with a whole bunch of people who are having success already, then chances are your ability to identify those moments and the opportunity to identify those moments occurs a whole lot more frequently, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing, is putting yourself in the position to let those opportunities happen. And you've certainly been a master of doing that. And I brought up at the beginning of the show that, you're actively advising over 100 other companies. You have your hands in a lot of stuff. If it was anyone else, if I didn't know, Roland Frasier, I would say, hey, you really need to get your act together and stick to something, right?
Not focused enough, right?
Yeah, but you seem to be really good at micro-focusing on things as needed. What would you say, because a lot of what you do is contrarian to what people are told as far as keeping it simple. What would you, the advice that you would give to someone when they're hearing, hey, you need to just, focus, get the blinders on and get laser focused on that one thing versus, hey, keep your eyes and ears open for opportunities. Don't miss those because you are laser focused on something.
It's a great question and a very hard question to answer because it's so specific to people. So I think that the general rule is correct, focus. But what I think the corollary to the general rule that is frequently missed is be careful what you focus on and choose carefully so that you are not focusing on the wrong thing, right? And that's what happens, like going all the way back to what we were talking about at the very beginning about being product-centric versus marketing-centric. Your ability to evolve and iterate is really critical. So if you focus only on one thing, you may miss the iteration. You have to choose carefully. So what I've told a lot of my friends that one, and this might be a good tool for everybody from this interview, if you take only one thing away, right, is it's very powerful to, instead of saying no to these opportunities, because it's really hard for us to say no to an opportunity because it's something new, it's more interesting that we're doing, it's unknown, all of the challenges of it aren't yet evident, they haven't revealed themselves until you go into it. But instead of saying no, which cuts us off from those opportunities, say not now. And not now lets you stay in the game. It lets your brain say, I haven't given anything up. It's just a timing thing. And I can still get through these things I've got. That's corollary one. Corollary two is I think that you can focus in two different ways. You can try to focus, which I think is a myth, on 22 things at one time. But that's not really possible because you're constantly distracted from other things. What a computer processor does, it multitasks in a truly effective way by processing completely each little set of instructions before it goes to the next. But it does it so rapidly that it appears that it's doing multiple things at one time. So that's been my philosophy ever since I heard about how that works, is I will focus intently without distraction on one particular thing until that particular thing is done. And then there's a waiting period. So, for example, let's say there's an agreement that I'm trying to negotiate. So I talk with the people and we created first draft of the agreement, and then it goes out to them, and now I'm waiting, right? Well, while I'm waiting, I can wait, which is dead time, or I can now focus 100% of my attention on the next thing that I'm doing until that gets done. By the time that gets done, chances are pretty good that my agreement has come back that now I can look on. And it's the same thing all throughout the process. So as long as you're not wearing 100% of the hats in your company, as long as every org chart box is not occupied by you, you can actually completely focus 100% on each given task that needs to happen during that day until that task is done. And then that waiting period, that dead time, can be filled with other tasks that you focus 100% on. So you only limit yourself when you get past the amount of tasks that you can focus 100% on during any given day. That's kind of how I have found an ability to do it.
I know you're a busy guy, Roland, but before you go, because I know I've think back to our conversation here, and I know there's a little bit of curiosity probably created around the War Room Mastermind.
Sure.
And I don't hesitate to say, because I think you're pretty clear on this, that it's definitely not for everyone. But I know that you guys also have the digital marketer.
Yes.
That maybe for a different level. Can you, if you have a minute, kind of run through those two and who would best be suited by each one of those and how
Sure.
they can find out more about them?
Yeah, and thank you for asking. So the War Room is the mastermind, which is for people who are already in business doing $1 million to $1 billion a year in business, who want to share. They actually have something to contribute and give, as well as to receive and network with our 100 people. It is, there's an application process, and that's at warroommastermind.com. And that's really for folks that are already doing well, that have a business that's operating and are ready to grow it to the next level by networking and connecting with lots of resources and having direct access to me and my partners and those people. The entry point for anyone into our world of digital marketing is through digitalmarketer.com, where we have DM Lab, which is only $38. I think it's $38.38 or something like that per month. And that is access to dozens and dozens of execution plans, which are specific things on how to do things, articles, content, all of that stuff that's created by Ryan Dice and Richard Lindner, Perry Belcher, Russ Henenberry, Molly Pittman, and myself and our whole team to really get people specific ways to accomplish specific things. And then we have a free podcast that's called Perpetual Traffic, where we talk about things like that. And then our higher levels are an actual software as a service with certifications around 8 core digital marketing disciplines. That's called DMHQ. And that can be accessed through the digitalmarketer.com site as well. And then we've got a couple of events we do every year coming up in September. We've got Content and Commerce, that's contentandcommercesummit.com, where we talk about the intersection of people who are producing content and the people who are selling things online. And then our biggest event that we do is the Traffic and Conversion Summit, which happens in February of 2018, the next time.
Well, fantastic. I got to say, I appreciate you taking the time to come on and
thanks for having me.
Talk about that stuff. Great information. I mean, real content, solid information that I think anybody can benefit from. How can folks follow Roland Frasier, find out more about you and keep up with what you're doing?
I'm on LinkedIn under Roland Frasier, and I'm on Facebook. I have a Roland Frasier page. And then if you want to see a lot, like all of my past presentations over the past several years are archived on SlideShare. So if you go to slideshare.com/Roland Frasier, then you can kind of see lots of the stuff that I talk about. And those are probably the best ways to connect with me. I monitor them, and I respond on Facebook Messenger and LinkedIn Messenger, and I'm happy to help people in any way that I can. And to me, everything good comes from helping other people. So that's kind of my philosophy.
Well, you're certainly good at that. And I've got to say, I'm glad you mentioned the SlideShare, because that's a university degree's worth of information there on its own. So I appreciate you sharing this and taking the time again. Folks, definitely check out, if you don't know the name, you've got to get to know Roland Frasier. And I'm sure that if have been in marketing for 2 minutes, you know the things that he's been involved in with the digital marketer and the companies that he's works with. If you have been marketing for a while and you have built up that business and you're ready to, maybe you have questions, but you may also have answers. You definitely need to check out the War Room Mastermind as well. Until next time, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/influencersradio.